There we go. We should have some sound now. Alright, it's a good thing I've got my mom in my ear telling me that we didn't have sound because I completely forgot my microphones this morning. So anyway, this is the time of day when we pull a random object out of the randomogrifier, Random Object Randomogrifier, a toy out of the toy box. I'm just going to spritz these watercolors here real quick and make sure they're nice and juicy later on. I don't want to have to fight them when the time comes. You don't want to have to scrub at them. You just want to dip your little tips of your brushes in there so that you can just tap, tap, tap in and get you some colors. Our toy today out of the toy box, our random object out of the Random Object Randomogrifier. How many times do you think I could say Random Object Randomogrifier? I could probably say it a bunch of times because I love my Random Object Randomogrifier. Anyway, today we have a Australopithecus skull. Australopithecus is famous in the news because it was discovered in 1974, or at least it was published in 1974 by a man named Donald Johanson. And Donald Johanson was very knowledgeable about the ways of the press. You know, PBS was a big thing at the time. Cosmos, Nova. I'm not sure Cosmos had come out yet. I think Cosmos was more 80s, but it might have been. But Nova and National Geographic had these PBS shows. So there was an opportunity there, and he was very savvy to the opportunity of publication, of popularity. And so he made his discoveries public before they had been peer-reviewed. And what that has ended up doing is it's ended up causing a whole lot of controversy around his claims that Lucy here, they named her Lucy because they were listening to Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds when they discovered her. But his claims that Australopithecus, Lucy, was an ancestor, was a bipedal ancestor from the plains of Africa, East Africa, mosquitoes, and he published all of these findings in popular journals before they had a chance to be peer reviewed. We did the composition phase really fast. There's really just two big circles here for composition, the cranium and the jawbone, and then you've got a kind of a visor going across there. So there's really fast, the composition is really fast. I don't want you to miss that part. The composition in the drawing phase is important because it tells you, it makes sure your drawing is going to fit on the page, and two, it gives you some anchor points for the other parts that you want to draw. If you don't put those in, you won't know that your drawing is going to have the right proportions. So we did it fairly quickly today. But anyway, he was extremely savvy on popular media of the time, and because of that, there are wild claims about Australopithecus that have, you know, there may or may not be foundation in science. You'll never know because it was never properly vetted before it was published. And now you have public opinion about it. Now you've got scientists banging their hands on the table. You've got paleontologists banging their hands on the table, stamping their feet, saying that's not how it's done. Blah 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 blah. Let's see, how does that go? That goes, I can see that goes up and that goes across. That goes up and that goes across. But does it do it? I think it does. I think it does it like this. Like a little smile. But there's some wild claims. Don Johanson, not Don Johnson. This isn't Miami Vice. Don Johanson discovers Lucy. He and his team discover discover this Australopithecus, and they claim that she's the first biped, and she's on the African plains, so she's an ancestor of modern humans. She's the missing link, and those claims are made, published, and the whole argument just goes downhill from there, because not everybody agrees with that. What they found, here's where the problem comes in, is what they found was not a perfect little skull that said, you know what, my mother is telling me that I have failed to turn on the lights. We're working in the dark. You can't even see what I'm doing. There we go. Where was I? I have to remember what I was talking about. Oh, because what they found, all these wild claims, these exciting claims that they made. It's not like they found a little. It's not like they found a little body that with a sign that says, "Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm your great aunt." What they found was a crushed skull, some rib bones, pelvis, a little bit of femur. They didn't even find a whole skeleton, because it's a fossil, and it's a 3 million year old fossil, and they know it's a 3 million year old fossil because they found it around some ash that was attributed to a volcanic eruption that they can date. And so it doesn't mean the science is wrong. It doesn't mean that his claims are false. It just means that it wasn't properly vetted, and we didn't have the proper studies prior to him going public with it. And so that made a lot of scientists mad. And the real struggle for me is they get all up in their feelings. They get their feelings hurt about this, and they forget the science too. There may be supporting evidence, but they'll neglect the supporting evidence because they're mad at him. And so we don't get good science out of it, and that irritates me. I am at the heart of all of this a scientist. I am a guy that loves to read and study biology, historical evolution, evolutionary biology. All of that stuff just fascinates me. And so at my very heart, I want to know the truth of all of this stuff. I want to see the evidence, and I want to hear the discussion. And when the scientists get mad at each other, they neglect that part of it. They stomp their foot, they pound their fist on the table, and then they stomp off. And then it takes years before actual studies get done. Now, in the case of Lucy, some actual studies have been done. She is not the only Australopithecus they found, and because of that, they were able to piece together this skull. This is not a skull of an Australopithecus. This is a composite rendering of several skulls put together. And that's important to know, because it feeds the discussion, right? We don't have one skull. We don't have one steady set of information. And so some of it we have to interpolate. And that interpolated data is not set in stone. It's always changing. The information is always changing. The way that we can study stuff is always changing. the other findings is always changing. But anyway, I'm not trying to discredit the find. I'm not trying to say that Lucy is not the first bipedal, but she's not. They have since found another bipedal that they believe, biped that they believe is bipedal in the, bipedal means walking on 2 feet, walking upright on 2 feet, by the way, just in case, for those that may not have caught that reference. Bipedal means they walk on 2 feet. But there's another finding that they found in the Sahara, a little further west of where they found Lucy, and that is dated to about 6 million years old. Lucy's about 3 million years old, and the other one is about 6 million years old. And here's some interesting things about that. There's an ash layer. Like I said, there's an ash layer in the fossil record that they can date pretty accurately, you know, between 2.5 and 3.5 million years. And Lucy is just above that ash layer, so that puts her at about 3 million years. And then they take that mitochondrial DNA, like we've talked about before. They take that mitochondrial DNA and they look at things like chimpanzees and us, and they see that we diverged from chimpanzees. By counting the mutations, they can see that we diverged from chimpanzees about 6 million years ago, not 3 million years ago. So Lucy wouldn't necessarily be an ancestor, she'd be a cousin. There was an explosion of things that happened then, or so the thinking goes. I don't want to be guilty of saying this is fact, this is fact, this is fact, when the fact is, it's all speculative. There was nobody around. I didn't put in this process right here. This is going to be important here in a minute. How are we doing on time? Oh, it's already 5:45. You know, 1 minute I'm looking up at the clock and I'm like, man, it's 5:05. I've got 25 minutes to kill. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to stay awake for 25 more minutes. And then I start, and it's like, oh my God, it's already 5:15. I should be so much further along than this. But you know, it's like they say, time flies when you're having fun, right? You think time was flying for her? So yeah, that was the big controversy. There was no. It's like the lack of humility, and the lack of humility in science is what irritates a lot of people, because they'll say, this is how it is. The science is settled, and you'll hear me say this many, many times. Any scientist that says the science is settled is no scientist. The science is not settled. That's not how science works. Science is ever changing. Every time a new discovery is made, it has to be factored into the case. And if it doesn't match, if your story doesn't match the evidence, then you don't toss out the evidence, you toss out your story. So it does turn out that Lucy is not the oldest. There's another one that they discovered that's somewhere around 6 million years that may very well be the first bipedal animal, bipedal primate. And it's interesting why they think that happened. the Himalayas started rising up about 50 million years ago, and long about 10 million years ago, they start affecting the landscape. They start seriously affecting the landscape. That's a lot of pain. They start seriously affecting the landscape in the plains of Africa, and the animals become trapped because and they have to adapt to a new way of life. They have lived their whole lives in the trees, arboreal, and then all of a sudden the trees are starting to go away and open up into plains. And so because of this, they had to adapt. And if you're in the grasslands, any prairie dog or meerkat can demonstrate that in the grasslands it's better to stand up so that you can see over the grass. And so these primates that could stand up and see over the grass were very successful. There were a bunch of them. And everybody was eager to say that Lucy was the first. All right, let's put that drop shadow in. Basically just going around putting core shadows and form shadows in. You want to make sure you have like a little bit darker just inside, but lighter to the back, because that's the reflective light coming off the back, and that reflective light is what gives you the impression that it's round. Without that reflective light, it just looks flat. All right. Can't talk, arting. I think that's going to work for us right there. That'll give us a good foundation when we come back in with the browns and yellows. So yeah, there was no humility in Donald Johansson's discovery when he decided to go public with it so quickly. Let me dry this real quick. That way I won't spread this paint into the next layer. Because you know the drawing is really the part that everybody's down for. That's what we all know that's what you signed up for. Y'all woke up to come downstairs to watch paint dry. I know that's what you're really here for, is the paint drying. I put that brush away like I wasn't going to do this next step at all. I'm going to go with a light shade of orange before I do anything else. I want everything covered in orange first, because there is no white spaces on here. There are, in English language we say are when we're talking about plurals. There are no white spaces on here, so we want to make sure there's no white space on here. I'm going to do that first. Give her a little color, and then I'm going to come in with some browns, and I'm going to treat the brown like it's more of a deep stain. Because she's got a lot of cracks and pits in this skull. So Lucy's actual remains went on tour once in 2007, and I'm really kind of miffed that I missed it. In 2007, they took the actual remains and they took them on tour, and it started here in Houston and went around the world, really. And about 30 million people came out for the Lucy tour, and I was teasing it. I called it the I Love Lucy tour. But the Lucy's Legacy tour is what it was actually called. About 30 million people turned out for the Lucy's Legacy tour, and it was the actual skeleton, the actual remains of her and some of the others that have been attributed to Australopithecus. And it was popular. You know, about 30 million people worldwide saw it. And if you figure they paid $30 a piece, you know, $90 million, nothing to sneeze at. I'm sorry, $900 million, nothing to sneeze at. That's still wet. When I go in there, it activates, and that's not what I wanted at all. This is not quite dark enough here in the corner. In this should be a contact shadow. It should be nice and dark right there. And then this should be a contact shadow. It should be nice and dark right there. But that was the last time Lucy went on tour. And that was the last time Ethiopia really made any money from it. The museum in Ethiopia has the remains, and they get some scientific tourism from it, but they're not really making enough money to sustain the project. So the project's not advancing the way you would hope. The identification of the bones, you would hope that would continue on, but it's not happening the way you would want it to because there's not as much funding. And I think it was a missed opportunity as far as Ethiopia was concerned to license the copies, to license the models, so that there was at least a copyright. So that at least every time somebody sold a Lucy statue, there's a company in California that over the last 10 years has been making $70,000 a year just selling replicas. And the Ethiopian Museum of Natural History doesn't get a cent of that. I didn't feel like you got enough picture on here. That should do it. How are we doing on time? Oh, it's 5:55. I'm actually concerned. I kind of feel like this needs more red. It's not going to get it, but I just feel like it needs it. Do 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 do. Lucy is wildly popular in the media. The announcement of Lucy sparked all kinds of imagination in the public. She's the poster child for evolutionary documentaries, or any documentary talking about ancient life in Africa. You can't have an ancient life in Africa documentary, especially if Attenborough is going to narrate it. You just can't have that without talking about Lucy. And so the public interest is still there. There's documentaries. They even made a movie. What year was that movie? I think it was 2013. The name of the movie was Lucy, with Scarlett Johansson. Not related to Donald Johansson at all. But in that movie, it talks about the future. It's got the idea of the future of human evolution, becoming one with the universe, blah 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 blah. A bit of metaphysical stuff going on there, but they reference back to they actually have Scarlett Johansson's character go back and touch fingers with the Lucy in a creation of man kind of imagery. It's an interesting scene. It's not very good science, but it's an interesting scene. The movie's entertaining. Don't not go see the movie just because I don't appreciate the science. I'll tell you another interesting feature about shadows while I've got you on here. The shadow there has picked up some of the red from the skull. I don't want to overemphasize that because I do want the skull differentiated from the shadow. But the shadow has picked up some of that red. And this red should be more prominent in the skull itself, especially on the dark side. On the dark side. There we go. I think that's probably exactly what I was trying to do. Okay, what is today? Today is the 3rd. I can hear my mom's alarm going off. It must be 6 o'clock. All right, so that is what I did. What's funny about that is I have a lot of these. I have these cameras kind of on an automatic rotation, and it's interesting to me that it always stops right where I need it to. So right there, that was my rendition. That's what it looks like compared to the photograph that I posted. It's the reference photo posted. Let me get a second here, and I'll show you what it looks like compared to what I was looking at. I just have to disconnect all this stuff up here. All right. And let's see it from my point of view. Let's see it Tell you what, though, let's see it in 9:16. That way we can get more of it. All right. So this is what it looked like to me. Now you can see my perspective wasn't much different than the photo reference, but it's just a little bit lower. Because I take the picture like this, but then I sit like this. Anyway, okay, so that's what I did today. We talked about Lucy, the Australopithecus. We talked about the humility of science. We talked about public interest. The little girl has already chosen a random object for tomorrow. Let's open it up and see what it might be. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. Oh, it's the last human. No, this is not Cassandra from Doctor Who. Very few people are going to get that. That's a very specific sci-fi reference. But no, it's not Cassandra. It's a skin drawing on a rack from the Powhatan Indian set. I think it's a skin. Yeah, it's a deer hide. It's not Cassandra from Doctor Who. Moisturize me. Anyway, this is what we're going to do tomorrow. If you're watching this Friday morning on the 4th of July, if you're watching this before 5:30 in the morning, this is what we're about to do. Stick around, we're going to do it. But right now, I'm going to get ready for work, and I appreciate you guys coming. This is my favorite time of the day when I get to come down here and I get to art with my besties. You guys have a fantastic day, and be sure and tune in tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And we dance. We dance till somebody says, take my mic off, because that is how I know that the lag has caught up with the stream, and I won't be cut off in mid-sentence.